This is a game that you probably have never heard of before. Despite this game sold around the same amount of copies as a game that is, talked about to death online. And people was even starting to put it out in forums and threads online and really questioning about Banjo-Kazooie's iconicness. Is he really that iconic, or is it really skewed perception from people who grew up with the N64 constantly telling you down your throat that Banjo-Kazooie is an iconic game? This game is known as Croc, Resident of the Goobos. You have never heard this game before, despite this game selling 3 million copies. Again, places in games are not as discussed besides the big games online all too much. Why are places and games discussed all too much online? And why won't 90s kids who grew up with the first PlayStation discuss the love for the first PlayStation? Is really the discussion for online games really that skewed towards PlayStation? Why don't people talk about the nostalgia for Croc rather than goobos much more than, as well? And also, even then, discussion for PlayStation platforming really comes down to Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, 2 series that are often discussed to death. So, why is this phenomenon that Croc rather than goobos is ignored practically online? Was it really just a bad game? Well, it has an average score of 4.3 online. So Croc rather than goobos isn't really a bad game because the average score is 4.3 out of 10. That is not a bad score by any means. On IMDb, the game has a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which, again, Amazon has a 4.3 out of 10. No, not out of 10, out of 5. And not many people really talk about this game. The game has also gained a HD re-release, despite no one talking about this game and no one talking about the game getting a re-release. On Windows, the game has a 4.5 out of 10. So how could such a well-received game not be talked about online? It was one of the very first 3D platformers in a non-Nintendo format and sold over 3 million copies, the other being Crash Bandicoot. Despite this, the game didn't really sell, as much as Crash Bandicoot, but still, the game still sold more copies than Banjo-Kazooie, a game that is discussed about on online thread as well, to death, essentially, by every fan of the, internet, saying how great Banjo-Kazooie is. Saying, how great and how important Banjo-Kazooie is for gaming. And mostly it is because of the nostalgia, but Banjo-Kazooie is talked about to death online about how great it is and how important it is, but no one talks about Croc. It is such a strange phenomenon that I just don't get it. Croc was a PS1 game that sold a similar amount of copies on the PS1, isn't discussed too much as Banjo-Kazooie. Okay? It isn't discussed as the same as Banjo-Kazooie. Okay? Croc is not in Super Smash Bros. Despite, the game selling similar amount of copies. And if you really want to rub it onto the face of Mega Man fans even more, Croc outsold basically every Mega Man game if you count them all as individual games. Which is another big L for Mega Man, because every Mega Man fan tries to claim that Mega Man is such an iconic game and such an important game. Meanwhile, nobody buys and plays Mega Man games. So yeah, that's another L for the Mega Man fans. Okay? The fact that Mega Man 11 can't outsell Pikmin 3 Deluxe. And really, I hope finally the internet discussion finally changes around what is iconic in the gaming industry as well. The mainstream media, of course, goes along with the big YouTubers and what is iconic or not. But Banjo-Kazooie is definitely not as iconic as the internet likes to claim Banjo-Kazooie is. The game Croc, rather than goobos, sold a similar amount of copies, heck, even more copies than Banjo-Kazooie, yet nobody talks about this game, despite how well received the game was. Despite Croc being a very well received game, you don't see Croc being included in Super Smash Bros. Because people have nostalgia over Banjo-Kazooie, but you don't see people begging Nintendo to put Croc from Croc Legend of Goobos into Super Smash Bros. Consider the fact that Croc was a very successful series, yet nobody talks about this series. And the games are very well received as well. The fans of the Croc series loved the game. Okay, the game sold around 3 million copies alone on the first PlayStation. Okay, and it's even getting a remaster with something that Banjo-Kazooie can't even get. So yes, Banjo-Kazooie was able to get into Smash Bros. But Croc is a series that might be making a comeback, and nobody is even talking about Croc making a comeback because the online discussion is so skewed towards the N64, it's kind of frightening. It really shows that really this game is underrated in terms of gaming discussion. So yes, this game is underrated because nobody is gonna talk about this game because it wasn't on the N64 and they didn't quote unquote go up with it. Even though PlayStation 1 games sold, PlayStation 1 sold way more copies than the N64 ever did. And that's it about this video here. Goodbye.